October 17th, 2024, Thursday, 11:45 p.m. There are some things in life that no one can explain, no matter how hard they try. And tonight, I am standing before one of them. A grave that should have never been opened. Just 50 feet from my house, in the abandoned lot at the end of the street, lies a single open grave. The name on the gravestone is Jonathan Wells, 1893 to 1924. But here is the thing. No one in my neighborhood knows who Jonathan Wells was, and this grave was never here before. It appeared overnight. No signs of digging, no disturbed soil around it, just an open pit waiting for something. Who dug this grave? Why is it open? And most terrifying of all, why do I feel like something is watching me from inside it? I know that no normal person would stay here, staring into a hole in the ground that should not exist, especially this late at night. But I need to know the truth. If you want to know too, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me until the end, because what I discovered will change everything. The cold night air wrapped around me as I took a hesitant step closer to the grave. My breath was shallow, my heart pounding against my ribs like a warning to turn back. But I could not. The open grave was right there, dark and endless, as if the earth itself had decided to swallow something, or someone, whole. The gravestone stood tall, its surface worn and weathered, yet the name, Jonathan Wells, 1893 to 1924, was perfectly clear, as if freshly engraved. The wind picked up suddenly, rustling the dead leaves around my feet, and for a moment, I swore I heard a whisper, low, almost too faint to catch, but I knew it was real. I held my phone out, turning on the flashlight, and pointed it inside the grave. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing what should have been an empty hole. But it was not empty. My stomach twisted as I saw something impossible. Deep scratch marks along the dirt walls, as if someone had tried to climb out. The soil was loose, scattered in odd patterns, and at the very bottom, half buried beneath the dirt, was something pale, a hand. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, but I could not move. I needed to see if it was real, if it was what I thought it was. I crouched at the edge, my hands trembling as I reached for a small rock and tossed it into the grave. The second it hit the dirt below, something shifted. The hand twitched. My breath caught in my throat. The dirt shifted again, just slightly, but enough for me to see it clearly. Something was still down there. I stumbled backward, nearly losing my balance, my flashlight shaking in my grip. The wind howled through the trees, and suddenly, I felt it again. That unbearable sensation of being watched. But it was not coming from the grave anymore. It was coming from behind me. Slowly, every nerve in my body on edge, I turned my head, and what I saw made my blood freeze. A figure stood at the edge of the trees, barely visible in the shadows. It was tall, its face hidden in the darkness, but its eyes glowed. Dim, eerie, like faint embers flickering in the night. It was watching me, standing completely still, almost as if it had been there the whole time. And then, without a sound, it took a step forward. A chill crawled up my spine as I stepped back from the open grave. The stillness of the night had become unbearable. My backyard, once a place of safety, now felt like an extension of something far more sinister. The air was heavy, thick with a strange, damp smell, not just soil, but something older, something decayed. I swallowed hard, my breath uneven. The grave was deep, deeper than it should have been, and the longer I looked at it, the more unnatural it seemed. I turned toward my house. My only thought was to get inside and pretend none of this had happened. But then I saw it. Footprints, not mine. They led from the edge of the grave toward my back door, but they were incomplete. Half-formed impressions in the dirt, like something had dragged itself partway before vanishing. I had left my back door slightly open when I came outside. Just an inch. Enough for the light from inside to spill out onto the porch. But now, it was wide open. Pitch black inside. My stomach twisted. Was something in my house? I forced myself to move, stepping toward the door as quietly as I could. My hands were shaking, but I reached for the handle, ready to slam it shut. Then, a shadow moved inside. A slow, deliberate shift of darkness just beyond the doorway. I stumbled back, my pulse hammering in my ears. The footsteps behind me, the ones that should have been mine, did not sound like mine anymore. And then, from the darkness of my house, I heard it. A whisper, not from outside, not from the grave, but from inside, right where I had been standing just minutes ago. You left the door open. A chill wrapped around my spine like icy fingers. That whisper, it came from right behind me. But how was that possible? I had just turned around. I had seen the open grave, the footprints leading to my house. There was nothing behind me. Slowly, I turned my head, every nerve in my body on edge. The backyard stretched before me, silent and undisturbed, except for that terrible, gaping grave. Empty. There was no one there. Then, the whisper came again. You left the door open. But this time, it came from inside the house. I jerked my head back toward the open door, my pulse thundering in my ears. The kitchen was dark, the air inside unnaturally still. I could barely make out the outline of my furniture against the dim glow from the street outside. My heart pounded against my ribs as I stepped onto the threshold. The wooden floor was cold beneath my feet. The second I stepped inside, the air seemed thicker, heavier, as if something unseen was pressing against my chest. The silence was deafening, not even the sound of the clock ticking. That was when I noticed something was wrong. Very wrong. The layout of my kitchen, it was slightly different. The chairs were not where I had left them. My keys, which I had tossed on the counter, were gone. And the fridge door, it was open, just an inch. I knew for a fact I had closed it before I went outside. A sharp creak echoed from deeper in the house. The floorboard in the hallway. My stomach twisted. I was not alone. I forced myself to move, one slow step at a time. My breath was barely a whisper in the heavy silence. The hallway stretched before me like a tunnel, darker than it should have been. The light bulb overhead flickered once, then died, plunging me into near-complete darkness. Then, another whisper. You should not have come back inside. I sucked in a breath. It was closer this time, right in front of me, but there was no one there, or so I thought. As my eyes adjusted, I saw it. A shape at the end of the hallway, standing just outside my bedroom door. Motionless, watching, my hands clenched into fists. I wanted to run, to get out, but my body refused to move. The figure did not make a sound. It did not shift, did not breathe. It was just there, blocking my way. Then, in the dim light from the street outside, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Its feet were covered in dirt, the footprints leading from the grave. They had stopped at my back door, and now, whatever had left them, was standing in my hallway. I felt my pulse hammering against my skull. My body screamed for me to move, but I was frozen in place, unable to breathe, unable to think. Then, the figure took a step toward me. A single, slow, deliberate step. The wooden floor groaned under its weight. Then another step. I stumbled back, my heel hitting the edge of the kitchen counter. My mind screamed at me to run, but something about the way it moved, so slow, so intentional, was worse than if it had charged at me. It was playing with me. And then, it spoke. Not a whisper this time. A voice. Hollow. Rotten. I have been waiting for you. The air around me grew colder, and the silence in the room felt thick, almost suffocating. The figure, now fully materialized in the hallway, seemed to pulse with a presence I could not explain. An oppressive energy that pressed against me, making it difficult to breathe. My feet felt frozen to the floor, the realization that I was not alone sinking into me like a cold blade. I have been waiting for you, the voice repeated, dragging each word as if it were emerging from the depths of a grave itself. The words seemed unnatural, wrong, deliberately slow, designed to unsettle. I wanted to shout, to run, to slam the door in its face, but I couldn't. My body was refusing to cooperate. This thing, it wasn't just some manifestation of my fear. It was real. It knew me. I took a hesitant step back, trying to steady myself, but the room felt like it was spinning. The walls stretched, bending, twisting as if they were alive, a sickening echo in the air. The floor beneath me seemed to tremble, almost as if it were shifting. Then, something strange happened. The figure in the hallway moved, not with the fluidity of a living person, but with a staggering jerk, as if its joints were not meant to bend. It was unnatural, something more like a puppet being controlled by strings. I froze, unsure if I should scream or stay silent. The figure's face. I could not see it clearly. It was just a black void, a shadow that seemed to swallow everything around it. But I could feel it, that sensation of eyes on me, watching me, analyzing me. Its smile grew wider, an unsettling sliver of light cutting through the darkness. Why are you here? I forced the words out, the tremor in my voice betraying the panic rising in my chest. I was called, it whispered back. The voice was not just one. It was several, layered over one another, all trying to speak at the same time. Called. The word lingered in my mind, like a dark echo. Was it referring to the grave? To something buried in the earth near my house? The very grave I had seen days ago, the one that seemed to call to me in the dead of night? I thought of running, of escaping through the back door, but when I glanced toward the exit, I froze. The door was not where it should have been. It had moved. The hallway stretched longer, like something out of a nightmare. The door now a distant blur at the end of the hallway. How is that possible? Why are you hiding? The voice asked again, this time much closer. I spun back to the figure. It was now standing right in front of me. I had not even seen it move. In a panic, I grabbed for something, anything, to defend myself. My hand closed around a chair near the hallway entrance. I swung it wildly in front of me, but it passed right through the figure, the metal legs scraping against the air like it was nothing. The chair crumpled to the floor, useless. Then, just as the darkness of the figure seemed to close in around me, the knock came again. But this time it was louder. 3 knocks. Hard. Urgent. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something was not right. The figure stiffened, a violent jolt running through it, as though it had just received an order. It turned its head sharply, the dark void of its face shifting towards the door. There was a brief moment of stillness before it moved back slightly, as if it was reluctant to leave me. "Do not open the door," it whispered, its voice suddenly laced with a strange fear I had not noticed before. The shadows around it swirled, contracting, as though it was being pulled back into some dark space I could not see. The figure vanished for just a split second, then reappeared again, its face closer to mine, inches from my own. The air felt heavy, charged with an energy I could not escape. Then, another knock, harder. I had to act. The thing was afraid of whoever, or whatever, was knocking at the door. This was my chance. It wanted to keep me here. It wanted to keep me in the dark, isolated. But there was something else out there. Grabbing the door handle, I yanked hard. It did not budge at first, but the third time, with a violent twist, the door opened. I could barely keep my balance as I rushed outside, not caring about the thing in the house anymore. But as I stepped out into the yard, I turned around, and that was when I saw it. The figure, it was watching me from the window, waiting. I should have felt relief the moment I stepped outside, but instead, a deep, chilling realization sank into my bones. I was not free. The house behind me loomed in the dim moonlight, its windows dark, lifeless, except for one. It was there, that thing, that unnatural, shadowed figure, stood at the upstairs window, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. It did not move, did not waver. It just stood there, completely still, its faceless void locked onto me. For a moment, I could not breathe. My body refused to move, as if something deep inside me understood. I was not supposed to have left, but the question burned in my mind. If it did not want me to go, why did it let me? Why had it only whispered its warning instead of stopping me outright? Something about that fact terrified me even more. Then a noise, a deep, scraping sound from behind me. I spun around, my pulse hammering. The grave. The open grave I had seen near my house. The dirt around it was moving, shifting, like something beneath was clawing its way up. I took a step back. My mind screamed at me to run, to get as far away from that hole in the earth as possible. But my body was rooted to the spot, watching, waiting. Then, with an awful, wet tearing sound, a hand emerged. Not fresh, not human. The fingers were thin, stretched tight over bone. The skin a sickly, rotted gray. The nails, long, jagged, looked as if they had been broken and regrown over and over again. I choked on a breath. This was not possible, but it was happening. The hand grasped the edge of the grave, pulling itself up. Another hand followed. Then, the head, or rather, what should have been a head. There was no face, no features, no eyes, no mouth. Just an empty, void-like darkness, like the figure I had seen inside my house. But this one was different. It was physical. It was real. A corpse, trying to pull itself from the grave. I stumbled back, barely able to think. My breath came in short, ragged bursts. I had to run. I had to get away. But before I could move, the thing in the window moved. The shadowed figure inside my house stepped back into the darkness, disappearing from view. My mind reeled. They were connected. But before I could even process what that meant, the corpse in the graveyard lurched forward, not climbing, falling. It collapsed onto the ground with a sickening thud, twitching, convulsing as though it was trying to adjust to being in the world again. And then, it turned its head toward me. Even without eyes, without a face, I knew. It was looking at me. A shudder tore through me, every part of my being screaming that I had to run, now. But just as I turned, it spoke, not out loud, inside my head. "You should not have left the house. You should not have left the house." The words were not my own. They came from inside my head, slithering through my mind like a whisper from something that had always been there, waiting. I felt an unnatural stillness take over my body, like something was holding me in place. My breath stilled in my throat, and for the first time since I had discovered the grave, I felt something worse than fear. I felt watched. The corpse twitched again. Its head, if I could even call it that, tilted upward, the empty void where a face should have been somehow locked onto me. The skin, darkened with decay, shifted and pulsed, as if something beneath it was trying to push through. I stumbled backward, my chest rising and falling in panicked gasps. The lantern, still on the ground, flickered violently, casting long, writhing shadows along the broken headstones. The air felt heavier, thicker, like the graveyard itself was pressing against me. I had to leave. Without thinking, I turned and ran. The cold air burned my throat as I sprinted toward the gate, my heartbeat hammering so loudly in my ears that it drowned out every other sound. At least, that was what I told myself. But as I neared the exit, something changed. The air shifted, the darkness beyond the cemetery no longer looking like my street. My neighborhood, my house, they should have been right there. But they were not. I froze. The streetlights, normally dim and flickering, were completely off. The houses were still there, but they were not the same. Windows shattered, doors hanging open, like something had forced its way in or out. The once familiar homes looked ancient, the paint peeling, roofs sagging as if years had passed in the short time I had been inside the graveyard. I felt my stomach drop. How long had I been in there? Behind me, the graveyard remained silent, but I knew. Asterisk, asterisk, I just knew. Asterisk, asterisk, that the thing in the grave was still there, watching, waiting. I took a step forward toward my house. The front door was wide open. That was wrong. I had closed it when I left. A chill ran through me. If the door was open, what else had come inside? A sharp whisper cut through the air, so close it sent shivers down my spine. It knows you left. I turned sharply. The street behind me was no longer empty. 3 figures stood at the far end of the road, just at the edge of the flickering streetlight. Still, motionless, watching. I could not see their faces. I did not want to. A movement from the second floor of my house snapped my attention back. A shadow shifted behind the curtains of my bedroom window. Someone, or something, was inside. I took a step closer, my breath shaky, my hands trembling. From upstairs, I heard it. A slow, dragging sound. I did not move. A thud, then another. Footsteps, coming down the stairs. A new wave of fear crashed over me as I realized something even worse. The front door was still wide open, and yet, the footsteps stopped, right behind it, as if something was waiting. Not outside, but just inside the threshold. My body tensed, every muscle screaming at me to run, but I could not move. My feet felt rooted to the pavement. The figures at the end of the street took a step closer. The whispering started again, this time from all around me. It knows you left. You brought it home. It is waiting for you. And then, the door creaked. Slowly, deliberately. It swung open wider, revealing the darkness beyond. And something stepped out. It was not human. Its shape was wrong. Its limbs too long. Its movements unnatural. And yet, I recognized it. I had seen it before, in the grave. And now, it was inside my house. The night air thickened, heavy, unnatural. It clung to my skin like an unseen presence. And for the first time in my life, I truly felt like I was not alone. Even though I could not see who or what was there with me. I stood frozen at my front door, my fingers trembling as I fumbled to fit the key into the lock. My house, a place that should have meant safety, felt different. The walls, the roof, the windows, they were watching me. I pushed open the door, expecting relief. Instead, I was greeted by darkness. No warm glow from the kitchen. No familiar hum of the refrigerator. The silence inside was absolute, as if the house itself had been waiting. My breath hitched. I knew I had left the lights on. I stepped inside, my body tense. The wooden floor creaked beneath my feet, the sound too loud, too hollow. My own home suddenly felt unfamiliar, like I had walked into a replica of it, not the real thing. Then I saw it. The front door was still open. I had been so focused on stepping inside that I had not closed it behind me. But something was wrong. The air felt heavier near the threshold, and the shadows outside the door looked darker than they should. And then, a shape moved. It was subtle at first, a slow, shifting motion just beyond the doorway. A figure, tall and impossibly thin, standing just beyond the porch light's reach. My breath caught in my throat. My instincts screamed at me to close the door, but my body refused to move. The figure did not walk. It did not lunge. It glided. One moment, it was beyond the threshold. The next, it was standing inside. I took a step back, my legs threatening to give out beneath me. The figure was not right. Its limbs were too long, its body too still. It had no face that I could see, just a mass of shifting darkness, as if it was never meant to take a form at all. And then, it turned its head. It was not a natural motion. It snapped, like a puppet forced into movement by invisible strings. And when it did, I felt an overwhelming pressure in my skull, a silent scream buried inside my mind. I stumbled back, gasping. The air in the house had changed. No, the entire house had changed. Something was different. I turned, my eyes darting toward the staircase. The upstairs hallway was wrong. The walls looked stretched, the shadows along the ceiling flickering like candlelight. And at the very end of the hall, there was something standing there. Another one, identical to the figure near the door. Still, watching, waiting. I spun back toward the entrance, but it was gone. The front door was wide open. The porch was empty. The figure had vanished. For a moment, I dared to believe that I had imagined it. And then, my phone buzzed. The sound nearly stopped my heart. My hands trembled as I reached into my pocket. It was a message from my own number. There was no text, no name, just an image, a photo of me, standing right where I was. And behind me, something was in the doorway. I could barely breathe. My body refused to turn, but I could feel it. The air grew colder. My skin prickled. I stared at the phone, my mind racing. Then, another message. This time, there was text. For words that made my stomach drop. Do not turn around. I did not want to. I did not want to see whatever was behind me. But then, a slow, deliberate creak came from the floor. Something was stepping closer. And then, for the first time since I had left the graveyard, I heard it speak. A voice not my own. A voice that came from everywhere and nowhere at once. And it whispered, "You should not have left." The glow of my phone screen flickered in the darkness of my bedroom. My fingers trembled as I read the message again. Do not turn around. I wanted to believe this was some kind of prank. Maybe a friend messing with me. Maybe even my sister trying to scare me. But deep inside, I knew the truth. This was something else. The air had changed. It felt thick, suffocating, like invisible hands were wrapping around my throat. I sat motionless on my bed, my back stiff, my breath uneven. Someone, or something, was behind me. Then, it happened. Knock, knock. Two slow, deliberate knocks at my bedroom door. My stomach clenched. My body refused to move. It was late. Too late for anyone in my house to be awake. My parents had gone to bed hours ago. My little sister's room was downstairs. "Mom," I whispered, barely able to force the word from my lips. Silence. Knock, knock. Louder this time. More impatient. I turned my phone over, using the reflection of the screen like a mirror to glimpse behind me. Nothing, but the unease in my chest did not fade. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message. Do not open the door. Cold terror slithered through my veins. My hands tightened into fists. Whatever this was, it knew I was awake. It knew I was thinking about opening the door. I reached for my bedside lamp, my fingers brushing against the switch. Before I could turn it on, the knocking stopped. The silence stretched unbearably. I exhaled slowly, trying to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, it was over. Maybe I had imagined the whole thing. Maybe I was losing my mind. I swallowed hard and slowly reached for my phone again. But then slam. The door rattled violently, as if something had thrown itself against it. I shot up from my bed, my pulse hammering. My heart felt like it was going to explode in my chest. "Let me in." A voice, distorted, inhuman, rasped from the other side. It was not my mother. It was not my father. It was not anyone I knew. My breath hitched. Every muscle in my body screamed for me to run. But where? There was nowhere to go. The doorknob twisted violently. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and tried calling my mom. The ringing sound was the only thing filling the suffocating silence. "Pick up, pick up, pick up." The voice came again, clearer this time. "I know you can hear me." I bit my lip to stop myself from making a sound. Then something even worse happened. The door started to open. The handle twisted all the way, and the door creaked as it pushed inward an inch. Then another. I leapt off my bed and slammed it shut with all my strength, locking it as fast as I could. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Then, from the other side, scraping, like nails dragging slowly down the wood. I backed away, pressing my back against the cold wall. My chest rose and fell with sharp, uneven breaths. Then, my phone buzzed again. With a deep, sinking dread, I forced myself to look at the screen. Another message. "Do you really think a locked door will keep me out?" I covered my mouth with my hand, swallowing a scream. This was not a prank. This was real. Suddenly, my closet door creaked. I snapped my head toward it, a fresh wave of terror crashing over me. I had forgotten to check the closet. My breath quickened. My body refused to move. The closet door was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness peeking through. Had it always been open? Or had it just moved? I could feel eyes on me, watching, waiting. I needed to get out. Now, summoning every ounce of courage, I grabbed my phone, ripped the door open, and bolted into the hallway. The air outside my room was different, colder, but I had no time to think. I needed to get to my parents' room. Their door was at the end of the hallway, just a few steps away. But as I ran, something strange happened. The hallway stretched. No matter how fast I moved, my parents' door never got closer. I ran faster. The walls around me seemed to pulse. The air thickened, pressing against me, slowing me down. I was trapped. My phone buzzed again. I did not want to look, but I had to. One final message. "You should have never gone near that grave." Then, everything went black. What just happened to me? Was I still in my house? Or had I been pulled into something else, something I could never escape? And most importantly, what was waiting for me in the darkness? I will explain everything in the next parts. But before that, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because trust me, you will want to know what happens next. Darkness, a silence so deep, so unnatural, it felt like the world had ceased to exist. I did not know if my eyes were open or closed. There was no difference. I reached out blindly, but my fingers met nothing. No walls, no floor, no air. Was I even breathing? A faint sound broke the silence. A whisper, not from far away, but right next to my ear. You should have never gone near that grave. My stomach twisted. My heart pounded. I was not alone. I forced myself to move, stumbling forward into the void. The darkness felt alive, shifting around me, pressing against my skin like invisible hands. Then, a light, faint, flickering, just ahead. I ran toward it, desperate for anything other than this suffocating abyss. The closer I got, the more the air around me changed. It was damp, cold. The scent of wet earth and decay filled my nostrils. Suddenly, the ground beneath me was solid again. Dirt, gravel. My bare feet sank into the mud, and as I adjusted to the dim glow of the light, I realized I was back at the open grave. But something was wrong. The headstone was missing. The ground looked freshly disturbed, the soil heaving, moving, breathing. It pulsed like something was underneath, trying to claw its way out. I took a step back, then froze. I was not alone. A figure stood across from me, just beyond the grave. A man, tall, gaunt, dressed in soaking wet funeral clothes. His skin was an unnatural shade of gray, his eyes sunken and hollow. Water dripped from his body, pooling at his feet. And then he spoke. "You should not be here." His voice was not his own. It echoed, layered, as if multiple voices spoke through him. Some deep, some shrill, all whispering at once. I tried to respond, but my throat tightened. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and pointed at me. At first, I thought he was accusing me, but then I saw it. Behind me, a row of shadows stood in the fog, unmoving, watching. Their figures were warped, shifting in and out of focus. Their faces, if they even had faces, were shrouded in darkness. My entire body screamed for me to run, but my legs refused to move. The man in the funeral clothes stepped forward. Water pooled where he walked, rippling outward like the ground beneath him was not solid at all, but liquid. His hollow eyes locked onto mine. "They have chosen you." A chill ran down my spine. The grave is open for a reason. The shadows behind me moved. I ran, blindly, desperately, stumbling over the uneven ground. The air grew thicker, heavier, like I was pushing through an invisible current. My lungs burned. My vision blurred. Then, I tripped. The world tilted, and before I could scream, I was falling into the open grave. The moment my body hit the soil, the earth came alive. Hands, hundreds of them, burst from the dirt, grabbing my arms, my legs, my face. Fingers tangled in my hair, pulling me deeper. I fought, kicked, screamed, but the soil swallowed my cries. My body sank, inch by inch, the weight of the earth pressing down on me. My ribs ached, my lungs screamed for air, and then everything stopped. The hands were gone, the pressure disappeared, and I was standing, not in the graveyard, not in my house. I was somewhere else. A hallway, long, endless, stretching into the distance. The walls were made of stone, damp and covered in something that looked like veins. The air smelled of rotting wood and something metallic. I turned around, searching for a way out, and nearly collapsed in horror. The man in funeral clothes was right behind me, but his face was different now. His mouth was stitched shut. His eyes were missing, just empty, bleeding sockets. And in his hand, he held something, a rusted lantern, just like the one that had gone out in the graveyard. But this one was still burning. He raised the lantern and pointed down the hallway. "You have to keep walking." I shook my head. "Why? Where does it lead?" His lips trembled against the stitches. Then, his voice, a whisper directly in my ear. "It leads to the end." And behind me, from the darkness of the hallway, something moved. Something huge. Something breathing. And then, it started coming toward me. The hallway stretched before me, a never-ending path swallowed in shifting darkness. The air was thick, humid, carrying the scent of wet earth and rusted metal. My breath felt shallow, my pulse hammering against my ribs as I stood frozen, staring at the lantern in the hands of the faceless man in funeral clothes. His stitched lips did not move, but his whisper still echoed inside my head. "It leads to the end." Behind me, from the depths of the hallway, something massive stirred. A deep, guttural sound rumbled through the air, a sound that was neither human nor animal. It was hungry, breathing, waiting. I turned my head, terrified of what I might see, but the darkness behind me was too thick, too alive. I could not see it, but I knew it could see me. The faceless man stepped forward, raising the lantern. The dim, flickering light cast twisted shadows along the walls, making the veins on the stone pulse as if they were alive. Walk. His voice crawled under my skin. I wanted to refuse, wanted to run, but my legs moved on their own. One step, then another. The hallway swallowed me, the light barely stretching beyond a few feet ahead. Every step felt like I was moving deeper into something I was never supposed to enter. The silence was unbearable, broken only by the occasional sound of something shifting behind me. And then I saw it. The first door. It was old, rotted, covered in deep claw marks as if something had tried to break out. The handle was rusted, barely hanging onto the wood. But the most disturbing part was what was etched into the door. A name, my name. A chill shot down my spine. My fingers trembled as I reached out, unable to stop myself. The moment my skin touched the door, a scream. Not mine. It came from behind the door, a voice identical to mine. Do not open it. I yanked my hand away, my heartbeat slamming against my chest. My head snapped toward the faceless man. His posture remained stiff, unmoving. Keep walking. I did not argue. I could not. I forced myself forward, ignoring the voice that had sounded exactly like me. My mind raced with questions. How was my name on that door? Who or what was inside? Then, another door. This one was slightly open. The light of the lantern barely illuminated the inside, but I saw just enough to make my stomach lurch. A room full of mirrors, but the reflections were wrong. In each mirror, I saw different versions of myself. Some were twisted, their limbs elongated, their eyes hollow and dripping black liquid. Others were watching me, their faces expressionless. One version of me stood motionless, but when I blinked, his head had turned toward me. I took a step back, my foot hitting something solid. I turned my head, a third door. Unlike the others, this one was untouched. No claw marks, no names, no scratches. Just a single word carved into the wood. Exit. My heart pounded. Could this be it? Could this be the way out? I reached for the handle. The faceless man grabbed my wrist. His grip was ice cold, his fingers pressing deep into my skin. He shook his head slowly. Not that door. I tried to pull away. Why? It says exit. His stitched mouth twitched, the first sign of emotion. That is not what it seems. His voice had changed. It was weaker, like he was afraid. For the first time, I noticed something strange. His body was changing. His clothes were darker, soaked through as if he had been pulled from deep water. The longer I stared, the more I realized he was fading. His grip loosened. The lantern in his hand flickered. His form wavered, like smoke being blown away. And then, behind me, a sound. A wet, dragging sound. Something was coming. Something huge. Something that had been waiting. The shadows stretched, swallowing the walls, the doors, the faceless man. The only thing left was the hallway, and the unseen thing behind me. I had to choose. The door with my name, the room of mirrors, the exit that was not really an exit. My hand hovered over the nearest handle. Then, a breath on my neck. Not warm, cold, rotten. I spun around, but there was nothing there, only the darkness. And then, a voice, a whisper, right next to my ear. You were never supposed to leave the grave. What is waiting in the darkness? Why was my name on the door? And if I was never supposed to leave the grave, then where am I now? I could feel my heart hammering in my chest as the air around me thickened, becoming heavier with each passing second. The voice, soft and guttural, like it came from deep within the earth, echoed in my ears, sending shivers down my spine. You were never supposed to leave the grave. I turned, my mind racing, trying to make sense of it. My hand hovered over the handle of the door marked exit, but I hesitated. The faceless man, his presence fading, his grip loosening, had warned me. But the voice, that terrible, otherworldly whisper, seemed to pull me in. What had he meant? Was there something behind that door? Something that I had to face? Was there a way out? Or was it all just a trap? The air felt colder now. It was as though something unseen was watching me, waiting for me to make the wrong move. I could feel it, a creeping sensation at the back of my mind. Every instinct screamed for me to run, but where would I go? There was nowhere to hide in this endless hallway. I stepped back, away from the door, glancing toward the mirrors. I could hear the whispers from behind the reflective glass, murmurs that sounded like my own voice, but distorted, twisted. I did not want to look, but I could not help it. The urge to understand what was happening to me was overpowering. I turned toward the mirrors, stepping closer to the first one. The reflection that stared back at me was not my own. It was a shadow of myself, grinning with a twisted, malevolent smile. My skin crawled. Was this me? I stepped back, but the mirror image did not. It stayed there, staring, mocking me with its silent grin. The reflections were wrong. Every mirror showed a version of me that seemed off. Some of them had hollow eyes. Others were bleeding from their mouths. Some were smiling manically, while others were crying silently. Each one of them mirrored the fear that surged within me, showing me a twisted version of myself that I was terrified to face. Then, as if sensing my panic, a new reflection appeared in the last mirror, the one farthest from me. It was a face, but not my own. The face of the faceless man. His empty eyes stared through the mirror, his face shifting as though the stitches were tightening with every blink. The lantern in his hand flickered, but this time, the light began to dim, revealing something far more sinister behind him. A figure emerging from the darkness, moving slowly, almost too slowly. I froze. The figure had a human shape, but its movements were unnatural, jerky, like it was being controlled by invisible strings. Its body seemed to stretch and contract, as though it was trying to fit into a space that was too small. The more I looked, the more my stomach twisted in horror. I could not breathe. My mind raced. What was it? What was behind the faceless man? Why had it appeared? But before I could make sense of it, the image in the mirror shifted again, and the figure stepped forward into the real world. The air grew colder, and I could feel the temperature drop rapidly as the figure took its first step toward me. This was not a reflection. I stumbled backward, my feet scrambling against the stone floor, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. The thing was getting closer, each step bringing it closer to reality. Its face, a twisted version of my own, grinned at me, but its eyes, they were hollow, dark, empty. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me, filling the space. You cannot escape. I could hear my own voice echoing from the shadows. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The thing in the mirror, it was me, or at least a version of me. It was coming for me. I spun around, my eyes darting for the door with my name on it. There was no time left. The hallway seemed endless, and yet, everything in front of me was closing in. The darkness crept at the edges of my vision, moving closer with every second. How long could I keep running? Was there anywhere left to run? I turned again, but now the hallway was no longer silent. The walls seemed to shift, the shadows undulating, forming shapes, faces, and hands reaching out, as though trying to grab hold of me. The once familiar walls of the hallway now felt alien, like I was standing in a place that no longer existed in reality. The faceless man was gone, and in his place stood that twisted figure. It was no longer a reflection. It was real, and it was coming for me. But why? Why had this thing come from the mirror? Every part of me screamed to run, to find a way out, but I could not tear my gaze from the figure. It moved closer, step by step, its twisted face growing more monstrous with each passing moment. I knew, deep down, that if I did not act now, there would be no escape. Was this what the grave wanted from me? Was this my fate? With one final surge of panic, I turned and grabbed the door handle of the one that had marked my name. My fingers were cold, numb from fear, but I turned it, throwing the door open without hesitation. But what was on the other side? Was it the escape I so desperately sought? Or was I about to step into the depths of something far worse? As I stepped through the door, a loud, deafening screech echoed through the hallway behind me. The door slammed shut, locking me inside the unknown. What lies behind the door marked with my name? Like and subscribe to find out what happens next in this terrifying journey. My heart was pounding as I stepped through the door, the coldness of the metal handle lingering on my fingers. I barely had time to process what had just happened before the door slammed shut behind me, locking me in. A loud, hollow sound reverberated through the air, the kind of sound that told you, you were never meant to leave. I turned around, expecting to find a normal, empty room. But as my eyes adjusted to the dim, flickering light, I realized just how wrong I was. The room was cold, colder than the hallway outside, and the air seemed thicker, heavier. The walls were made of dark, rough stone, unlike anything I had seen before. There were no windows, no way to tell what time it was, or if the world outside still existed. And then, I saw it, the one thing I could not ignore. In the center of the room, there was a stone pedestal, and on that pedestal lay a book. Not just any book, but an ancient, worn book that looked like it had not been touched in centuries. The cover was cracked, the pages yellowed and brittle. My mind raced. Was this the key? Was this the secret I had been running toward all this time? I approached it cautiously, my hand trembling slightly as I reached out to touch the book. The moment my fingers brushed the cover, a cold shockwave rippled through the room. The lights flickered, and the walls seemed to groan, as though the very building was alive, and it was reacting to my presence. What was in this book? What kind of secret could it hold? As I flipped open the first page, I immediately knew that the answers I had been seeking would not be easy to accept. The text inside was written in a language I did not recognize, the symbols and letters flowing together in a way that made no sense to my eyes. But as I stared, trying to comprehend the meaning, something strange happened. The text began to shift. It was as if the book was alive. Each page I turned seemed to fill with more twisted words, more horrifying symbols. My heartbeat quickened, and I could feel the temperature in the room dropping even further. My breath was now visible in the air, like I was standing in the middle of a freezing storm. And then, I found it, the name. My name, scrawled across the page in what looked like red ink. The words seemed to glow faintly, but it was not light that I recognized. It was like blood pulsating on the page. I froze. Why was my name there? Why was this book connected to me? I felt an intense pull, as though the book was trying to tell me something, but I could not understand. My fingers hovered over the next page, but something stopped me. I could hear it. A whisper, low and guttural, emerging from the shadows around me. It was almost as though the walls were speaking to me. You should not have opened it. It was never meant for you. My head snapped toward the voice, but I saw nothing. Only darkness. That was when the air shifted. The room began to twist and warp, the stone walls pulsating, like a living, breathing entity. The temperature dropped even lower, and I could see my breath fogging in front of me, my body trembling from the cold. A strange, rhythmic tapping began to echo from the walls, the sounds growing louder with each passing second. I stumbled backward, terrified. The voice grew louder, its tone darker. You are not meant to know. I slammed the book shut, trying to drown out the terrifying whispers, but it was too late. The door I had entered through was no longer there. Instead, the walls had closed in, and now I was trapped in a maze of shifting corridors. Every time I tried to turn back, another wall would appear, blocking my way. My mind raced. How had I gotten here? What was happening? I could feel it now. The presence, the one I had been avoiding, the one I had been running from. It was closing in on me. I had made a terrible mistake by opening the book. The room was alive, shifting and changing with every move I made. I did not know where to go, or even if there was a way out anymore. I kept moving, my footsteps echoing in the empty, dark halls. The whispers grew louder, and then, I saw it. The walls in front of me began to glow, not from light, but from something far more sinister. The glowing markings seemed to form a pattern, a path, but I was not sure I wanted to follow it. The question echoed in my mind. Why had I opened the book? What was this place? But as much as I wanted to resist, my feet carried me forward, following the glowing symbols. They led me deeper into the maze of stone, winding around corners I had never noticed before. The whispers were now accompanied by screams, the kind of screams that came from deep within the earth, from those who had been trapped long before me. And then, I heard it, a sound that froze me in place, the sound of footsteps. I was not alone. Someone, or something, was behind me, following me through the maze. It was close, too close. I turned sharply, my heart racing, but there was nothing there. I kept running, but the footsteps persisted, growing louder with each passing moment. The cold, the fear, the dread, it was all closing in on me. Was this the end? The footsteps drew nearer, and I could not tell whether I was being pursued by a person or something far more terrifying. What was behind me? Who was behind me? The book had led me here, and now, there was no turning back. Will I finally uncover the truth behind the book? Who, or what, is chasing me through the shifting maze? What horrors await in the darkness? The footsteps were getting closer. I could hear them now, unmistakably loud, echoing through the walls of this twisted maze. My pulse quickened with every step that followed me, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I turned again, my heart in my throat. But once more, there was nothing there. The maze was no longer just an environment. It was a living thing, changing with my every step, breathing and shifting like it had a mind of its own. I was trapped, completely out of control. My feet stumbled on uneven ground, and I could feel the walls closing in, making the path narrower and narrower as I moved. What had I unleashed? The questions came flooding back into my mind, too many to count. Who was behind the footsteps? Why was the book so familiar? What did it want from me? And the biggest one of all, why was I here? The whispers, once distant and soft, had now become louder, clearer. They were no longer just echoes of voices. They were speaking directly to me. Each word sent a shiver of dread down my spine. You opened the door, One voice hissed. "You disturbed the slumber of those who were never meant to awaken." Another voice, deeper and more guttural, spoke over it. "We were waiting for you. Now, you belong to us." My breath hitched. The terror that gripped my chest made it hard to breathe. What was going on? Why was this happening to me? How was it possible that something so terrifying had been hiding so close to my home, beneath my very feet? And that is when it hit me. The grave, the one near my house. It was connected to all of this. The moment I had stepped into the maze, I had triggered something old. The book, the cryptic messages, the voice, the maze. It was all part of some horrific ritual that had been waiting to be completed. And now, I was the one who had unknowingly agreed to participate. I had uncovered a dark force, something ancient, something that had been buried for a reason. Suddenly, a cold breeze whipped through the narrow corridor, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and decay. My throat tightened as the air seemed to grow thick, heavy with the presence of something watching me, waiting for me to make the next move. A figure appeared ahead, standing in the middle of the winding path. It was tall, far taller than any human should be. The figure was cloaked in darkness, its face hidden beneath a tattered hood. But even without seeing its face, I could feel its eyes on me, piercing into me. I tried to take a step back, but my feet would not move. I was frozen, paralyzed by its presence. The whispers grew louder, now a chorus of voices, all chanting something in a language I did not understand. The sound reverberated through my skull, threatening to shatter my sanity. The figure took a step forward. I wanted to run, to scream, to escape, but my body refused to obey. The closer it got, the heavier the air became, suffocating me, choking the life out of me. The book had brought me here. It had chosen me. "You should not have opened it." The voice hissed again, but now it was no longer just a whisper. It was inside my head. I could feel its presence in every corner of my mind. The figure lifted one hand, slowly and deliberately, its fingers long and skeletal. It pointed directly at me. And then, the words came. "You are the final piece." Before I could react, the world around me seemed to crack and shatter, as though reality itself was breaking apart. The ground beneath me trembled, the walls of the maze shaking violently. The whispers turned into screams, screams of rage, of terror, of longing. The figure's hand began to glow with an eerie, sickly green light, and for a moment, I thought I saw its face. But it was not a face at all. It was a swirling mass of shadows, shifting and contorting in a way that made my stomach turn. It was like looking into an abyss, something that did not belong to this world. I tried to move, to escape, but the path ahead of me was now completely blocked, the walls closing in around me, squeezing the air from my lungs. I could not breathe. I had to escape. I had to get out before whatever that thing was took me, consumed me. But how? Suddenly, a new voice rang out, a loud, commanding voice, one that made the walls tremble. Enough! The figure paused, its glowing hand lowering, its presence shifting. For a brief moment, everything was still. Then, the figure spoke again, its voice now softer, almost pleading. "We have waited so long for this moment. The time has come. It is your choice. Embrace your fate." I could not understand what it meant, but I knew I could not stay there. I could not let whatever this was claim me. I had to get out. With one final surge of will, I forced myself to move. I stumbled backward, the cold air biting at my skin, my body screaming for air. I turned and ran, pushing myself harder than I ever thought I could. But the walls of the maze seemed to move with me, shifting and closing, and I felt like I was running in circles, chasing my own tail, the figure always behind me, just out of reach. Was I running toward my escape, or toward my doom? The question haunted me as I sprinted, my heart pounding, my breath ragged. But as I reached a dead end in the maze, I knew one thing for certain. I was not alone anymore. Will I ever escape this nightmare? Can I outrun the creature that has been chasing me through the maze? What does it mean to embrace my fate? Subscribe and stay tuned for the terrifying answers. My body was screaming at me to keep moving, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. The walls of the maze seemed alive, shifting with every step I took, twisting the paths behind me, ensuring there was no way back. My breath came in ragged gasps as the presence behind me grew stronger, an unbearable weight pressing down on my chest. I reached a dead end. The moment my hand slammed against the cold stone wall, I knew I had made a mistake. The whispers, which had been distant before, now erupted into a deafening chorus. The air thickened with something invisible but suffocating, like an unseen force wrapping itself around me. And then, the ground beneath my feet cracked. The maze was collapsing. Panic surged through me as the floor split open, revealing a gaping pit of darkness beneath. A wind, unnatural and ice-cold, howled from below, pulling me toward it. I scrambled to step back, but the force was too strong. I was slipping, and then I fell. The darkness swallowed me whole. I woke up gasping for air, my hands clawing at the damp earth beneath me. The smell of rotting wood and old soil filled my nostrils. My head throbbed, my body sore from the fall. As my eyes adjusted, I realized I was no longer in the maze. I was in a burial chamber. Wooden coffins, some broken, some intact, lined the walls of the underground crypt. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and the only source of light was a faint, eerie glow emanating from cracks in the stone walls. My pulse pounded in my ears as I tried to process where I was. Then I saw it. At the center of the chamber stood an open grave, the very same open grave near my house. But this time, I could see what was inside. A body. No, my body. I staggered back, my mind unable to comprehend what I was looking at. It was me, lying lifeless in the coffin, eyes closed, skin pale and lifeless. My heart pounded against my ribs. Was I dead? Was this some kind of twisted illusion? A slow, deliberate click echoed through the chamber. I turned sharply, my breath catching in my throat. The figure was here. It stood at the far end of the crypt, half shrouded in shadows, its hood concealing its face. But this time, it spoke in a voice that was neither a whisper nor a growl. It was calm. "You are finally here," it said. "You were always meant to return." I took a shaky step backward, my mind racing. Return? What did it mean? You have seen the truth. The question is, will you accept it? The walls of the crypt seemed to pulse, as if they were breathing. I could hear whispers crawling under my skin, seeping into my thoughts. Memories flashed through my mind. Images of the grave near my house, the strange symbols on the book, the name on the tombstone. Then, the realization hit me like a tidal wave. I had not found the open grave. I had escaped from it. How did I end up in the grave to begin with? Who, or what, is the figure watching me? And the most terrifying question of all, am I really still alive? Stay tuned for the answers. The crypt seemed to close in around me, the very walls pressing against my skin like a living entity. My breath was shallow, my pulse erratic. The figure stood motionless, waiting. "You have seen what was hidden," it murmured, voice smooth yet unnatural. "Now, you must remember." My mind rebelled at the words. Remember what? The whispers around me twisted into distorted echoes, fragments of voices calling my name, distorted laughter, a scream that sounded achingly familiar. The figure lifted a skeletal hand, pointing toward the open grave. My grave. Look closer. I did not want to. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to turn and run, but something far more powerful held me in place. A sick, suffocating dread crawled up my spine as I took a slow step forward. And then I saw it. The body in the grave twitched. My breath hitched. My hand, jerked, fingers curling like a dead thing grasping for life. But I was standing here, watching it. How could my corpse be moving? The answer came not from the figure, but from deep within me. A buried memory, clawing its way back into the light. I had been here before. The grave, the crypt, the night, everything changed. A stormy night flashed in my mind, rain pounding against the dirt as I frantically dug. My hands, coated in mud and blood, clawed through the wet soil as though I were desperate to uncover something or someone. The name, my name, was being whispered in my ears, over and over again, growing louder with every second. And then, in an instant, the grave had sealed shut. Darkness, suffocation, silence. I stumbled backward, my knees nearly giving out. The memory was too raw, too real. My hands trembled as I stared at the grave, at the body that should not be moving. "You tried to escape," the figure said, taking a step forward. "But the dead cannot run forever." The body in the grave suddenly sat up. I screamed, its head tilted unnaturally, eyes snapping open, my eyes staring straight at me. A cruel, knowing smile spread across its lips. And then, in my own voice, it whispered, "You should not have come back." The crypt shook violently. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling, the walls splitting apart like cracking bone. The air grew thick, pressing down on me like an invisible force. My mind reeled. Was I hallucinating? Was this even real? I turned to run, but the figure was already behind me. Cold, bony fingers wrapped around my throat. The last thing I saw before the world plunged into darkness was my own corpse, grinning as it clawed its way out of the grave. Who am I really? Why was I buried alive? And if I was dead, who was the one standing in front of me now? Like, subscribe, and prepare for what happens next. The truth is closer than ever. This story gives me horrifying shivers whenever I tell it. If you are still here, you are truly a brave man or woman. The darkness swallowed me whole. The grip on my throat tightened, ice-cold fingers pressing into my skin, stealing the breath from my lungs. I clawed at the unseen hands, my vision blurring as whispers surrounded me from every direction. You do not belong here. You should have stayed buried. A chilling laugh echoed through the crypt. The sound was not coming from the figure or the shadows. It was coming from me, or rather, from the thing that looked like me. I forced my head to turn, struggling against the force holding me down. My corpse, my other self, was now fully out of the grave, standing on unsteady legs. Its head twitched, those familiar eyes burning into me with something beyond recognition. You remember now, do you not? It asked in a voice that was mine, yet not mine. The memories rushed back like a flood. The night of my death, I had not just found this grave. I had dug it, but not for myself, for someone else. And yet, here I was, standing before my own body, facing a reality that made no sense. I gasped for air as the grip around my throat suddenly released, and I collapsed to the ground. My limbs shook as I tried to push myself up, my mind racing. Why? I choked out, my voice raw. What happened to me? The figure, still cloaked in darkness, stepped aside, revealing something that had been hidden all along. Another gravestone, one that had been covered in thick, tangled roots, as if the earth itself had tried to keep it hidden. My fingers trembled as I reached out, brushing away the dirt, and when I saw the name etched into the stone, everything fell into place. It was not my name. It was the name of the person I had buried that night. I stumbled backward, my breath ragged. This was never my grave. But then why was I seeing myself inside it? The corpse grinned wider, its mouth stretching too far across its face. It took a step closer, its voice lowering to a whisper. Because you tried to cheat death. And then, suddenly, I remembered everything. The ritual, the desperation, the fear of what was coming for me. I had buried someone else in this grave to save myself. But death does not forget. And now, it had come to collect. What did I do to deserve this fate? Who was buried here before me? And how had I managed to escape death once, only to be dragged back now? The wind howled through the graveyard, carrying the distant sound of something scratching against wood. My body felt frozen, not from the cold, but from the weight of the truth sinking into my bones. I had done something terrible, something unforgivable. I stared at the gravestone, the name carved into it still fresh in my mind. Elias Carter, the person I had buried that night. But why? Why had I done it? The figure standing beside the grave, the thing that looked like me, took a slow step forward. Its face was pale, its grin stretching unnaturally wide. But its eyes were filled with rage. You thought you could escape it, did you not? It whispered, voice dripping with something venomous. I stumbled back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The memories were clearer now, sharper. They cut through my mind like shards of glass. Elias Carter had been my friend, a friend I had betrayed. It had started with a secret, a discovery that neither of us should have made. The ritual, the promise of eternal life, of escaping death's grip. But the price was steep. One soul had to be sacrificed for the other to live. And on that cursed night, when the grave had been dug, when the storm had raged above us, I had chosen to live. I forced Elias into the open grave. He had fought, screamed my name, begged me to stop, but I had already made my choice. I had sealed my fate the moment I let the earth swallow him whole. And now, death had returned to finish what it started. I turned to run, but my feet refused to move. Something was pulling me back. The ground beneath the grave trembled. The soil shifted, cracked, split apart. And then, Elias's hand burst through the dirt. My breath caught in my throat as his decayed, rotting fingers gripped the edge of the grave. Then came his other hand, then his head. Elias was crawling out. I wanted to scream, to turn away, but I was frozen in place. My body refused to obey me. He pulled himself free from the grave, his movements unnatural, his head twitching at an odd angle. His hollow, sunken eyes locked onto mine, filled with something beyond death. You took my life, he whispered. Now I will take yours. The figure that looked like me began to laugh. The laughter echoed through the graveyard, splitting the silence apart like a blade. The ground beneath me gave way. I was falling into the grave. I clawed at the air, at the dirt, at anything I could grasp, but there was nothing to hold on to. The last thing I saw before darkness consumed me was Elias standing over the grave, smiling. Had death finally claimed me? Was there a way out of this nightmare? Or had I sealed my fate the night I betrayed Elias? The world went black as the dirt swallowed me whole. The weight of the earth pressed against my chest, crushing the breath from my lungs. My hands clawed desperately, but the soil only collapsed tighter around me. I was trapped. Panic surged through my veins like fire. My screams were muffled by the dirt filling my mouth, choking me. I thrashed, kicking, pushing, but it was useless. I was buried alive. Above me, I could hear Elias's voice. "You thought you could escape, but the grave remembers." The laughter of the thing that looked like me echoed through the layers of earth. The sound twisted, distorting into something inhuman, something that crawled into my skull and scratched at my sanity. Was this it? Was this how my story ended? No, I refused. With the last ounce of strength I had, I pushed upward. My fingers tore through the soil, inch by inch. My lungs screamed for air, my vision blurred, but I did not stop. Then, a hand grabbed my wrist. For a moment, hope flared in my chest. Someone was pulling me out. Someone had found me. But then I realized the hand was ice cold, and it was pulling me down. No. I fought against its grip, but it was too strong. The more I struggled, the deeper I sank. The earth opened like a mouth, swallowing me whole. My fingers slipped beneath the soil. Darkness consumed me. Then, silence. Was I dead? Was this the end? Or was there something worse waiting for me in the depths of the grave? Under the cold glow of the moon, I stood frozen at the edge of that open grave, my breath shallow, my pulse pounding in my ears. The air felt heavier, almost like the grave itself was alive, breathing in the darkness. The wind cut through the trees, carrying distant whispers, some pleading, some warning. My flashlight flickered weakly, casting long, twisting shadows over the headstones. Every instinct in me screamed to run, to leave this place behind, but I could not. Something held me there. Then, I heard it, a deep, rumbling noise from inside the grave. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but the ground beneath me trembled, and the edges of the pit started to shift. My chest tightened as the loose dirt crumbled away, and then a hand shot out. My stomach dropped. The hand was pale, rotting, its fingers twisted unnaturally. I could barely breathe as another hand surfaced, clawing desperately at the earth. And then, I saw the face. Hollow eyes locked onto mine, lips moving in silent, desperate words. It was him, the man from my nightmares, the one who had been whispering to me ever since I first saw the grave. But he was not trying to harm me. His face was filled with terror. He was not hunting me. He was trapped, begging for help. Before I could move, something ice-cold wrapped around my ankle and yanked me downward. I fell hard, the taste of dirt filling my mouth as I clawed at the ground. The whispers turned into screams, agonized cries from beneath the earth, too many voices to count. I kicked wildly, trying to break free from whatever had grabbed me. My fingers scraped against the dirt as I pulled myself away. The figure in the grave let out one final, heart-stopping scream before everything went silent. The grave was gone. The hole that had been there, deep and terrifying, was now nothing but untouched earth, as if it had never been opened. The air felt lighter. The shadows seemed less menacing, but I could still feel it, that lingering presence, watching, waiting. I ran. I did not look back. I did not stop until I was inside my house, every door locked, every window bolted. I collapsed onto the floor, my body shaking. It was over, or at least, I wanted to believe it was. The nightmares started fading after a few days. The graveyard looked the same, untouched, as if nothing had ever happened. But some nights, when everything is too quiet, I hear it, the faintest sound of scratching beneath the earth. Was it real? Was it just some terrifying hallucination? I do not know, and I do not think I want to. If you are still watching, that means this story pulled you in. So, if you think it was worth your time, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you do not miss the next one. And remember, it was all just someone's dream. So, relax your mind and stay tuned.